2025 ACL AFRI-Caribbean Investment Summit. I make very bold to say that this is not just another gathering. It's a movement. It's a redefining moment where two regions, Africa and the Caribbean, come together to forge for a future of shared success under the theme Bridging Continents, Africa and the Caribbean, a partnership for prosperity. Over the course of 3 days, we'll be engaging in groundbreaking plenary sessions, insightful discussions, high-impact networking, and an exhibition floor showcasing the best of business and innovation. I urge you, and I open your minds, as we go into this event, to open your minds and to be very deep with your learning, to see it as an avenue to network and invest in this future that we are shaping together. I'm going to be the co-master of ceremony with the very legendary Andy Gabriel. My name is Ave, the host. I am a multifaceted, silver-tongued orator. Without further ado, we're going to start this event and start it very briskly. But like my co-MC has mentioned, we would want to give honor to whom honor is due, as is our culture here in Nigeria. So please, when we get off the stage, please the representatives would please give us their cards with proper designations. I'm not sure if we have any other. Okay, we have one.
We have one. Thank you very much, Ave. I'd like to recognize the presence of His Excellency, Mr. Francisco Edu Ngumange, as the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'd like that we please welcome Your Excellency. Thank you so very much for joining us at this auspicious occasion. As we move to get this event underway with the nod that we are getting, recognitions will come in the course of this event. So if we haven't recognized you, please do not take it personal. We're also still expecting that many more participants will be joining us in the course of time. And so I think it is only proper that we get ready to then get this event underway. And in getting this event underway in earnest, we'll be having Ambassador Larry Vaughan of St. Kitts and Nevis to do us the honor of rendering the St. Kitts and Nevis anthem. And then we're going to be having one of our own from Nigeria in the person of Francis Attila, who will be giving us the Nigerian national anthem. But because we're starting in that order, would like the two gentlemen to please step up to the podium for the rendition of the anthems of both countries.
While they're coming up very briskly, if it's okay, I would want us to do a little exercise. When I was leaving the house this morning, I was asking my mother what would be the best way to introduce this event in a way that the guests might not really forget me in a hurry. And then she said, why don't you greet them in your local dialect? And I was like, Mommy, I don't know if you forgot, but you didn't quite teach me that on time. So I'm very sure I might not be able to say it in the way that it should be. So she said, okay, give the assignments to them. So that's exactly what we're doing now. I know we have a lot of Nigerians here and a lot of people from St. Kitts and Nevis here. So I want you to do me a favor. I want you to look at someone seated close to you with the widest smile that you can. Don't make it awkward, but with a very wild smile. I want you to greet them in any Nigerian language or any Caribbean language. Can we do that? All right, let's see who's going to leave the hall very soon. I see some people just... Oh, I'm hearing an over to pay here. Barca de Zua. No. Ekabo. Yes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be taking the anthems.
I think we also forgot to add the one that is quite popular amongst the North Central, Ndeve.
And that's actually where we're from. We're from Benue State. It's quite a coincidence.
Yes, I think we're ready with this. Thank you very much. Please may we rise.
Oh, land of beauty, our country, where peace abounds, thy children stand free on the strength of will and love. and never speak. A nation bound together with a common destiny. As stalwarts we stand for justice and liberty, with wisdom and truth we will serve and honor thee. No sword nor spear can conquer, for God will sure defend. His blessing shall forever to posterity extend. The Nigerian national anthem.
I think we can make that applause a lot louder for both countries. Please be seated. Thank you so very much. Please take your seats. Let me invite the former governor of Benue State to please sit on the front row. Can one of the ushers please lead him to a seat in the front row? All right, he said he's comfortable where he is. Please, let's put our hands for His Excellency Senator Gabriel Suswam one more time. Thank you. Now, at this point, I'd like to quickly plead with every other individual that will be invited to the podium or the rectum for his or her presentation, that after establishing the protocol, we do well to rest on it, because I'm going to be very, very explicit with the establishment of the protocol for want of time, so we can run with the speed that this event deserves. The representative of the Nigerian government, respecting that he joins us before this program gets to some level, that's the Honorable Minister of Finance, who is expected to standing for the Nigerian government. Your Excellency, our dear brother and Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Michael Jew, a brother to Africa, and in particular, a brother to Nigeria. Your Excellency, Dr. Amina Garib Fakim, former President of the Republic of Mauritius, a dear distinguished President of the most reputable banks in Africa, Professor Benedict Okechukwu, or Rama CON, ably represented at this event, the Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment, Nigeria, Dr. Jumoke Oduwale. I'm doing these recognitions in absentia, such that when they come, we would have actually recognized them. But of course, we'll do well to recognize them when they eventually get into these arena. The Honorable Minister of Finance of St. Kitts and Nevis, who also doubles as the Prime Minister from what I gathered. Your Excellency, the Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Bruntley, the Right Honorable Minister of Investment and former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Director General Center for Black African Arts and Civilization, who also is meant to be moderating the sessions today, Aisha Aogi, distinguished resource persons, Your Excellency Senator Dr. Gabriel Suswam, former Governor of Benue State, the Group Managing Director, Korean Consult, a very proficient consultant, and your very, very lovely, ever supportive team, the Secretary General OECS, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Didakos Yules, the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, Ms. Aisha Rimi, the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Mrs. Nonye Ayeni, captains of industry present at this event and represented, Mr. Karin Matsiko, the Head Trade Finance, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Managing Director, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Chief Emeka Obegolu, Ms. Sawyer Alain, CEO of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, St. Kitts and Nevis, Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic community here present, and your spouses, distinguished participants, members of the delegation from both countries, rapporteurs, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen of the press. We'd like to welcome all of you, having done that official welcome by my colleague. And this event is an event that is meant to build bridges between the continents. And of course, today, we're all simply excited that we're able to sit together under one roof to talk about building bridges with this very epoch and maiden summit, investment summit between the Republic of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We must at this point in time pay glowing tributes and pour encomiums and accolades on the organizers of this event. It is my honor to say that you do please join me with a very resounding applause as we appreciate the Group Managing Director of Aquarian Consult, Ms. Aisha Maina. Please let's appreciate her with a round of applause as she comes forward with a remark of welcome. We can do better with that round of applause, please.
Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, Your Excellency, former President, please allow me to stand on existing protocol. However, I would also like to recognize Minister Samal Duggins, the Minister of Agriculture, Creative Economy of St. Kitts and Nevis. My name is Aisha Maina, the Managing Director of Aquarian Consult Limited, an organization that is focused on supporting businesses, aggregating the businesses and opportunities, supporting organizational human capital development. And this we have done for the last 16 years. I would like to welcome you all to the inaugural session of the Aquarian Consult's AFRI-Caribbean Investment Summit with a country focus on St. Kitts and Nevis. This summit was inspired by a speech that President Orama of the Afreximbank gave in the Bahamas in 2024 at the annual meeting, where he launched a concept of the global Africa, which to me basically said, everyone of African ancestry, wherever you are in the world, is an African. And as we are global Africans, we must always come together, regardless of our location, and remember that we are one. This is why the summit was conceived. The objectives of this summit is to strengthen economic and trade relations between Africa and the Caribbean, to build bridges between the regions. However, this summit is also about far more than trade and economic relations. This summit is also about creating structures, taking action, so that our shared story is no longer defined solely by the historical trauma of the Middle Passage. While I do not discount by any means the immense positive impact of the Global North, I believe that real transformation begins when the Global South chooses and accepts itself, chooses to invest in itself, chooses to actually see itself as worthy, enumerates its own metrics for development, standards, compliance, and when it understands that the negative qualities usually used to measure its risk assessment are general human characteristics and not characteristics to only people of a particular ancestry. As long as we continue to seek validity outwardly, we risk remaining in a state of potential only and never move from there. I have to, at this point, absolutely recognize and thank the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, because he made a very rare occurrence happen. It is very rare that the Prime Minister and the Premier of Nevis go to the same place at the same time. But the significance of the times that we're in, the significance of the fact that this is the time where the Global South needs to recognize itself, needs to trust itself, needs to set its own metrics, is such that the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis is here today with the Premier of Nevis. We hope, my team and I, that at this summit, at this very summit, today and tomorrow and the day after, we would begin the journey to real transformation. We will begin to see that our differences are actually strengths and not weaknesses, because only in diversity can we grow. For so long, we have been told that our differences are weaknesses. And I think now is the time that we have to begin to understand that we cannot all be the same. We're 8 billion people or more in the world, and not one individual is alike. When the Global North chose to see that their differences were actually strengths, they came together and had unions. They came together and had regional committees to the point that we are today. We, as the Global South, continue to look at each other with anxiety. We continue to look at each other with distrust, because the metrics that we're using, even as the Global South, to look at each other is one set by someone else, not one that recognizes who we are, not one that recognizes the strength of who we are. We are continuously classified based on our color, but we are different shades of that color. It does not mean that we are different. It just means that we're one, we're diverse, and that is our strength. And we do hope that with this summit, we will begin to have those conversations, the conversations that are driven not only by governmental institutions, but also by private organizations, by individuals, and making it our concern, our business, not just the business of government, not just intergovernmental relations, not just because we feel like there's a huge playbook that everybody needs to plug into, but because we, as individual citizens, believe that we are one people. We hope that with this summit, strategic partnerships will be formed, regardless of the distance. The actual distance between Africa and Caribbean is very short. However, as we all know, it takes 2 to 3 days to go either way. That should take 6 hours. We hope and really push that this is the beginning of the conversations that will build those bridges, land, air, sea, and more importantly, spiritually, because once we accept that we're one people, we're connected. We hope that with this summit, we will all be inspired to look in the mirror and look at the next person and know that we are one. And understand that we can sit at a table, have a conversation, do the transactions, and not look at a metric of risk and compliance that is set by someone else simply because we have a certain ancestry. The bridges, I believe, will be formed. The time is now. I believe that the catalyst is not just for governments only. It is also the responsibility of private sector, of every single individual to get on a plane, to walk on the street, to do a transaction with the next person of the same ancestry and not look at the person as they do. Not look at the person as the way we are conditioned to look at the person, but look at the person and understand that that is my brother or that is my sister. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, and all the delegates from St. Kitts and Nevis, I say, welcome home. And to everyone, I say, welcome to the beginning of our future. Thank you.
If you are as inspired as I am right now by that speech, please can we give another round of applause? If you haven't considered politics, I think this is a great time. That was a great speech. The bridges would be formed, the time is now. That was such a powerful way to set the ground running for this event today. I picked a few things, and our differences are strengths and not weaknesses. And over 8 billion people in the world are not the same. Even as someone that has an identical twin sister, I do agree that our differences is actually what brings out beauty. It's what shows diversity, and we are better together. Strategic partnerships will be formed, and truly, Africa and the Caribbean will merge for indeed a new era of prosperity. One more time, a round of applause for her by that beautiful speech. All right, we're moving very briskly into the program, and we're going to have our first keynote address. And it was supposed to be taken by the president of the Africa Export-Import Bank, that's Afreximbank, but we have a representative for Professor Benedict Okechukwu Orama. And to represent him, we have the AG Regional Chief Operating Officer, Head of Mission. Ladies and gentlemen, to take us for the first keynote address, let's welcome Mr. Alan Terry Bongo. Please, a round of applause for him.
His Excellency Dr. Terence Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Her Excellency Dr. Amina Gurib Fakim, former President of the Republic of Mauritius, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, ministers, and members of the delegation of St. Kitts and Nevis, heads of government, parastatals, Mrs. Aisha Maina, Group Managing Director of Aquarium Consort, captains of industries, and esteemed high-nerve individuals, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me also to stand on existing courtesies. It is a distinct honor and privilege to give this speech today on behalf of the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank, Professor Benedict Orama, who would have loved to be here today, but is unavoidably absent due to prior commitments. Today, my message is centered on the theme that is not only timely but pivotal to the advancement and prosperity of our people, the concept of a global Africa. Africa's character as a continent and a cultural identity transcending geography gives it a unique status in the world. From Lagos to London, from Kingstown to Kigali, from Atlanta to Accra, the African inheritance has been cherished and developed in groundbreaking ways in humankind's general benefit. As we navigate a rapidly evolving landscape where regional blocs are shaping global politics and economics, it becomes essential for Africans and individuals of African heritage worldwide to unify around a shared vision and a collective purpose. This vision of global Africa resonates powerfully with the theme of this summit, Bridging Continents, Africa and the Caribbean, a partnership for prosperity. Indeed, forging meaningful connections between Africa and the Caribbean offers unprecedented opportunities for economic growth, cultural enrichment, strategic partnership. By leveraging our shared heritage and aligning our development objectives, we can effectively bridge geographic divides, stimulate intra-African and diaspora trade, foster investment, build resilience against global shocks. Just as it is a force that has transformed world politics, music, cinema, literature, and art, so can Africa's truly global status transform our global economy. In an increasingly multipolar world, the urgency for Africans, both on the continent and in the diaspora, to unite and collaborate as one group has grown significantly. The disillusionment with globalization, particularly in the developed world, has accelerated the formation of regional blocs that increasingly compete rather than cooperate. While these blocs seek to promote economic unity and sustainability within regions, their emergence underscores the necessity for Africa and the Caribbean to assert their collective voice together. We must move in tandem to shape our future through shared principles, mutual respect, and a common vision. Africa, a continent of 55 countries and home for nearly 1.4 billion people, remains marginal at the global decision-making table. The colonial era and decades of globalization have seen the continent and the Caribbean exploited for their natural resources. At the same time, their human capital has often been exported to power the economies of other regional blocs. Without concerted efforts, Africa and the Caribbean risk being left behind again as new blocs define emerging world order. our collective marginalization must give way to coordinated empowerment. This is the essence of the Global Africa vision, to unite not only the nations on the African continent, but also the vast African diaspora of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, Latin America, North America, Europe, and beyond. By recognizing and mobilizing a shared identity, the group of people representing the global Africa bloc could potentially be estimated at 2 billion people, about 1 in 4 of the world's population. This will make it the world's second largest group after the United Nations. A strong partnership between Africa and the Caribbean is foundational to this bloc. Through it, we can champion our values, defend our interests, and take our rightful place in shaping global affairs. The concept of global Africa is not just an idea, but a movement, a platform, and a call to action to take control of our destiny by fostering unity, leveraging our collective resources, and asserting our voice on the global stage. If properly harnessed, the collective strength will make us one of the world's most formidable political and economic bloc. We are re-establishing our knowledge of each other, renewing bonds of history and solidarity fed by centuries of displacement, alienation, and colonization. We are bringing the world closer together, fulfilling the vision of the founders of Afreximbank. In their agreement establishing the bank, they allowed it a broad remit in taking forward South-South trade. Your Excellencies, by embracing the concept of global Africa, we can ensure that our resources are extracted and used to fuel our industries. We can retain our intellectual capital, foster innovation and entrepreneurship, and provide an opportunity to command a seat at the table where global decisions are made instead of being mere spectators. To achieve these objectives, global Africa must be structured, organized, and institutionalized for coordinated action. Afreximbank was established specifically to ensure that Africa assumes its proper role in global trade as a central, pivotal player rather than a marginal afterthought. The bank has continued to play a crucial role in fostering global Africa by providing financing solutions in support of trade and trade-enabling infrastructure projects on the African continent and the CARICOM region. The bank also supports trade facilitation through initiatives such as Africa Trade Gateway, which comprises products such as Pan-African Payment Settlement System, the Manta Repository Platform, Trade Information Portal, Trader Club. The bank also supports and fosters collaboration in the creative sector through the CANEX initiative and strategic support to African businesses and companies of African heritage through Intra-Champ initiative. Afreximbank hosts a biennial intra-African trade fair attracting over 5,000 participants across Africa and the rest of the world. We note the active participation of St. Kitts and Nevis in the previous edition with a booth setting up during the fair. We anticipate the country's involvement in the upcoming edition of the Inter-African Trade Fair scheduled to take place in Algeria from the 4th to the 10th September 2025. In the spirit of this global Africa vision, Afreximbank has deepened its engagement with the Caribbean, most notably through establishing the bank's CARICOM office in Barbados. Further underscoring this commitment, President Orama announced at the 48th CARICOM Summit plans to construct a $180 million Africa Trade Center in Barbados. This flagship initiative will not only serve as Afreximbank permanent presence in the CARICOM region, but also house a technology incubation hub, facility for small and medium-sized enterprises, and modern conference space. These investments reflect our belief in the transformative potential of the Africa-Caribbean partnership and our resolve to anchor that potential in strong, visible institutions. As we move forward, let us remember that the future of global Africa is not just about economic transactions, but also about reclaiming the narrative while ensuring that Africa becomes a true leader in the global economic affairs. In addition, the existence of a multi-continental, ethnical, religiously, and culturally diverse diaspora guarantees that even when Africa trades with the outside world, it does it in the spirit of friendship and equitable exchange. As globalization loses its attractiveness across the world and nationalisms of all stripes reassert themselves, another trend is emerging. Collectively, we are restoring unity of the African family, which has always been and will always be a global fraternity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I reiterate Afreximbank's commitment to supporting the sustained development of both Africa and the Caribbean region. Thank you.
I'm going to insist that we make that applause for him a bit louder than that. Professor Benedict Okechukwu Rama, Commander of the Order of the Niger, President of Afreximbank, speaking through, because I recall not too long ago, in recent times, you've held two distinct summits that is also aimed at bridging and building bridges between Africa and the Caribbean. I remember the very one that took place in the Bahamas, and I also remember the very one that took place not too long ago in Jamaica. We'd like to appreciate Afreximbank and like to please put your hands together for them for the yeoman's job that they're doing in Africa and helping to build bridges. I'd like to just quickly recognize the presence of Your Excellency Ambassador Carlos Manuel Moreno, Chargé d'Affaires, Republic of Sao Tome and Principe to Nigeria. Please a warm round of applause for him. Thank you so very much for joining us. The next keynote is going to be coming from someone with very great experience. The person I'm introducing is a Mauritanian politician and a biodiversity scientist who served as the 6th president of Mauritius from 2015 to 2018. In December 2014, she was selected to be the presidential candidate of the Alliance LAPIP after Kalisha Pereng resigned on May 29, 2015. Both Prime Minister Sir Anrod Yoganot and the leader of the opposition, Paul Barenga, positively welcomed her nomination. She was unanimously approved in a vote in the National Assembly of Mauritius. The lady I'm introducing, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is Her Excellency Garib Fakim, and she's the first woman elected as president of a country and is the third woman to have served as head of state, following Queen Elizabeth II and Monique Ohashas Belapu, who preceded her in the office and was the first vice president. She served as a 2019 keynote speaker of a Cambridge University conference with the theme, Africa Together, Which Way Forward? And that event was hosted by the African Society of Cambridge University. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please do join me as she comes to the podium. Let's join me in welcoming with a very resounding applause Dr. Bibi Amina Firdaus Garib Fakim. Your Excellency, ma'am.
Honorable Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Transdrew, Premier of St. Kitts, Delegation of St. Kitts, Nigerian nationals present here, Captain of Industry, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, of course, our dear friend Aisha Maina, who I salute here. Good morning. It is always a great pleasure to be back in the federal capital of Nigeria, the beautiful city of Abuja. A return after a long time, and I'm pleased to see the transformation the city has undergone. Here I would like to thank again Ms. Aisha Maina, Managing Director of Current Consult, for inviting me to speak at this important gathering. This AFRI-Caribbean Investment Summit is being organized jointly with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis with a view to enhancing AFRI-Caribbean trade and investment for lasting impact. This is important for the African continent inasmuch as the continent is engaging further with its sixth region, the diaspora. So I would like to recognize, before I start my speech, the representative of Afreximbank. And so today my speech will focus on the economic diversification and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, our dear continent, starts with considerable deficit in spite of its natural advantage of huge asset endowment. The continent of ours is about 30 million square kilometers, representing 20% of the Earth's surface, and she's home to nearly 1.4 billion people, representing 17% of global population, targeting 2.5 billion by 2050, and also home to swath of forests, mineral, among so many riches. Yet, the continent produces only about 3% of global GDP, accounts for less than 3% of global trade, and most of it is dominated by primary commodities and natural resources, and carries 25% of the global disease burden, and accounts for only 2% of world research output, and 1.3% of research spending, and 0.1% of patents. How can a continent with the largest share of the world's remaining arable land, 60%, a continent with the youngest population, a continent that has fueled all of the world's industrial revolutions, a continent that has helped drive the mobile phone industry, a continent that is at the cusp of supporting the world's energy transition to greener technologies with her large store of rare earth mineral deposit, accept such dismal statistics. Our challenges, ladies and gentlemen, are fundamental and structural. The deficit of investment in science and technology, an absence of economic and scientific infrastructure for innovation, have undermined the process of economic transformation, both at the structural level, the shift of workers and resources from low to higher productivity sectors, and at the sectoral level, the growth of productivity within sectors. The consequences of that deficit have been significant and include continued reliance on the colonial development model of resource extraction, largely responsible for the debilitating poverty trap and aid dependency trap. But the challenges have been compounded by economic fragmentation, with smaller markets constraining long-term investment and injection of patient capital to foster innovation and drive technology transfer in the context of globalization. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCFTA, which defragments Africa to establish the largest single market in the world by membership and created the conditions for scale, also lifts one of the most important constraints on the path of economic transformation. But meeting that challenge of economic transformation, a development objective that has eluded Africa for decades, in the AFCFTA era hinges on Africa closing its scientific and technological gap with the rest of the world and sustainably producing the right sets of skills to address supply chain constraint and ultimately expand both extra and intra-Africa trade and sustain higher rates of growth to accelerate the process of global income convergence. Currently, we have a public education system that prescribes rote learning rather than deep independent critical analysis and thinking that is needed to succeed in the knowledge-intensive economies. That system has neglected the sciences, which have been the major drivers of growth and innovation for decades. Just a few statistics for illustration. According to the World Intellectual Property Indicators 2020, offices located in Africa receive 0.5% of all patent applications filed worldwide, compared to 65% in Asia, 20.4% in North America, and 11.3% in Europe. According to UNESCO, Sub-Saharan Africa was home to only 0.7% of world researchers as of 2018, while representing 14% of the global population. In comparison, outperformers such as Denmark, Sweden, Korea, respectively, they have 8,000, over 7,000, and over 7,000 researchers per million people. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest dream of most African graduates is to find a job instead of fostering entrepreneurship and drawing on the creativity and animal spirit to find solutions to economically rewarding problems, and we have so many across our continent. In the medical and pharmaceutical industry, and the COVID-19 crisis has shown, in the housing and urban development as our cities illustrate, in the climate space as our excessive reliance on import of refrigerators and air conditioning illustrates, in the energy sector, the chronic deficit of power across the whole continent, including in South Africa, the most sophisticated economy in the region, illustrates. However, the AFCFTA that aims to unlock manufacturing potential, drawing on the rules of origin to facilitate industrialization, driving sustainable growth and jobs across other objectives will need a different set of skills to fully deliver on its full transformational power. The key boon of manufacturing is that it absorbs large swaths of workers and places them into productive and decent paying jobs. Throughout history, this exact recipe has transformed the United States, United Kingdom, France, Japan, and Germany into some of the world's wealthiest nation. Most recently, a new age of industrialization has helped push China into one of the world's fastest growing economies, boasting the largest middle class, with other Southeast Asian countries following closely behind. These are all examples of how industrialization, through economic diversification, can generate rapid structural change, drive development, and alleviate poverty and unemployment. However, this narrative seems to exclude many African nations. Despite the manufacturing potential and promising trajectories, most African countries have remained largely dearth of factories. This limited industrial development represents a missed opportunity for economic transformation, characterized by the expansion of manufacturing output in a context of a strategic shift of workers and resources from low to higher productivity sectors through the more entry and growth of technologically intensive firms and sustained efforts to foster innovation and the higher productivity sectors. However, the silver lining is the potential. Business-to-business spending in manufacturing in Africa is projected to reach over 600 billion by 2030, over 201 billion more than it did in 2015. Africa is also set to become the next great manufacturing center, potentially capturing more than the 100 billion labor-intensive manufacturing jobs that will leave China by 2030. This trend creates a huge opportunity for the continent, not only for countries like South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, all regional outperformers in the global manufacturing competitive index, but also for the newest players such as Ethiopia, Morocco, Rwanda, and others, all of whom have recently adopted policies enabling manufacturing and industrial development. Today, leaders are increasingly realizing that manufacturing is a major factor in helping Africa realize its development potential and narrow its income and welfare gap with other regions of the world. And the African Union has rightly made industrialization and export diversification the centerpiece of its strategy, Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. African governments are seeking new and innovative ways to attract investment and nurture industry, implementing strategies that involve targeted investment in infrastructure, improve regional integration, establishment of special economic zone for priority subsectors. However, in order to reach its manufacturing and industrial potential, much needs to be done by the public and private sectors to increase Africa's economic complexity, diversity, competitiveness, and productivity. After all, to reverse the trend and to compete in an intensely globalized world, we need to take a big leap forward fueled by innovation. We also need an innovation system that can deliver new manufacturing technologies and processes to get us there. Ladies and gentlemen, at the macroeconomic level, countries across Africa have been chronically dependent on aid, I think until recently, and urgently need to turn their attention to attracting private investment and venture capital, marshalling innovation. But it is not all gloom and doom. Africa has the youngest population of any continent. According to the World Economic Forum, the median age among the 10 youngest countries on the African continent range from the age of 14 to 18. We ignore this significant demographic asset at our peril. This inexorable trend means that by 2034, Africans will be home to the world's largest number of working-age adults. The World Bank estimates that 11 to 15% GDP growth over the next 20 years will be attributable to these favorable demographics. The energy is palpable with world-class innovation emerging from technologies incubators in cities from Kigali to Harare and to Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen, as we explore the best strategies to build and sustain research and development capacity for the Africa's economic growth and economic and social well-being, we need to take a look how science, technology, and innovation can be better mobilized to propel us in our journey to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and the African Union Commission's Agenda 2063. Fortunately, there are many nascent success stories that we can draw upon and that need to be replicated speedily at scale. In certain sectors of technology, entrepreneurship, and application, we know that we are pivoting to a better place. The energy is palpable. We see this most prominent in telecommunication. In 2006, according to The Economist, there were fewer than 13 million landlines and 130 million subscriptions to mobile phones in all of Africa. Today, over 1 billion of the continent's 1.4 billion people have access to mobile phones. These, in turn, have served as a platform for innovation and in the efficiency delivery of services. Of particular note of financial services and mobile money initially developed in East Africa and spreading across the continent. Across sub-Saharan Africa, relatively few people have traditionally qualified for bank accounts. But today, everything from bananas in the marketplace to software for our PCs is purchased through the mobile money platform in Kenya, M-Pesa. Afreximbank, Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, which is set to facilitate payment for cross-border trade in Africa currencies, will not only assuage the liquidity constraint, it will also push the boundaries of efficiency and productivity at the continental level with significant implications for growth and structural transformation. Indeed, the GSMA, an International Telecommunication Trade Organization, notes that for every 10% increase in phone penetration in poorer countries, productivity improves by more than 4 percentage points, and that a doubling in mobile data usage increases annual per capita GDP growth by 0.5 percentage point. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. M-Copper is an energy startup built on the mobile money platform M-Pesa, enabling families to purchase clean home energies in payment as small as 50 cents. M-Copper brings solar energy to more than 500 new households every day, totaling over 500,000 East African homes, and they were previously unreached by power lines. With only 1 in 3 Africans having access to energy, energy security is crucial to fighting poverty, improving productivity, and sustaining the growth of output, especially industrial output, and nurturing the next generation of scientists. Today, these families receive over 62.5 million hours of clean solar energy per month through this technology. And as a business enterprise and contributor to the economy, M-Copper has raised well over $50 million in venture capital, providing full-time jobs to over 1,000 people and retaining over 1,500 sales agents. Ladies and gentlemen, as these few success stories show, there is greater recognition about the role of STI can play in achieving national development goals, and the challenge is to maintain the momentum. Shining examples of world-class innovation in Africa are emerging, for example, from technology incubators, creating techies across the continent. As a result, Africa is attracting capital investment necessary to build industry that is sustainable in the long term, rather than further cultivating the dependence, which is by nature short-term and has never led to either the development or structural transformation of any region or any country. Whether in the realms of energy, banking, communication, medicine, the major drivers of growth, productivity gains have been science, technology, and innovation. In fact, the 1970s, the world has moved from organization change-driven growth to technological change-driven growth. No wonder the largest corporations and companies on Wall Street have become tech companies, which account for a high percentage of total market capitalization. The key questions then is, what are the policies, skills, and contours of the scientific ecosystem that will foster sustainable growth of scientific technological innovation to sustain and accelerate the process of economic transformation? We must seek to establish the proof of principle that world-class Pan-African science and innovation can be mobilized for tackling Africa's deep and entrenched development challenges led by Africans in Africa, with priorities set by Africa, for Africa, and in strong partnership with the international community. In this way, Africa can claim its rightful place as a global driver of prosperity for the benefit of all. How can we contribute to tackling our challenges? It is by building dramatically scaled-up infrastructure for research, helping create the right policy environment, supporting sound governance of our institutions, and most of all, investing and unleashing the scientific capacity of people. And of course, one mustn't forget women. We know the best trained, most talented researchers naturally gravitate to environment where their work is leveraged by modern equipment, reliable utilities, and sufficient funding for supplies, and more critically, benefiting from the presence of other talented people. Africa's brain drain must be transformed into Africa's brain gain by creating research infrastructure that rivals the best in the world right here at home. Our only success will beget success. The aim is for Africa-centric investment to create a virtuous cycle of talent attracting talent, boosting training, working to retain the trained talent is to tackle Africa's development challenges and sustain the process of economic transformation over time. And at the same time, we must realize about the magnitude of aspiration. Every step in the research ladder must be systematically enforced. For example, today's world-class postdoctoral fellowship in African laboratories are virtually non-existent, forcing our best PhDs with a great potential to seek training overseas, and many of whom end up contributing to the proverbial brain drain. So this is a collective loss, and we provide major subsidies to the new host country, often more industrialized economies, which are always very quick to trumpet their generosity under the debilitating aid-dependent model. Ladies and gentlemen, those dedicated to building a thriving, self-sustaining Africa, where science is the new lifeblood of economic transformation in our behoved continent, are invited to bring the stone so that we can move mountains together. Starting with politicians and bankers who hold the purse, and then every young African who has the potential to be a great scientist must work hard to realize his potential for the benefit of the continent and humanity. And then the private sector, which must rely on African scientists to innovate and become globally competitive to sustain the transformation of African continent economies. And then over time, and through a vibrant public-private partnership for economic transformation supported by African scientists, the process of continued innovation and scientific endeavors will expand the power of Africa's purses and reduce its excessive dependence on externally debt financing. But creating an ecosystem where the scientific culture becomes central to economic transformation and policy-making decision process is a long-term investment that should not be affected by either political or business cycles. Hence, to achieve a success in the path of economic transformation, effective collaboration under that tripartite public-private academia partnership for economic transformation must be sustained over time. There is an African proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I hope we can all bring many seedlings and shovels and plant many trees that will flower together, nurtured by the best scientific knowledge available and the talents of Africans. It can be done. As responsible stewards of the earth, and specifically for our beloved continent, it must be done so that the benefits of science, technology, innovation are marshaled for greater economic, social, environmental sustainability, both on the continent and beyond. I thank you for your attention.
Please, can we keep that applause going one more time? What a powerful speech. You know, out of everything that she said, and she did drop a lot of gems, I got Africa's brain drain must be transformed to Africans' brain gain. That's a very deep statement. And before she came up, my co-MC did an exceptional job introducing him. Please, if it's not a bother, please can we put our hands together for our co-MC, Mr. Andy Gabriel. And he did an amazing work introducing her, and I was just sitting down listening to her, and I was in awe. And as you may know, March is Women History Month. And she has shattered barriers as Mauritius' first female president. She is a leading biodiversity scientist. She's a fierce advocate for women in STEM. She inspires future generations to break stereotypes. She leads boldly, drives innovation in science and governance. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dr. Amina Group. Thank you very much, ma'am. We're moving very briskly into the program, and we're going to have the next keynote address by the Prime Minister, Tenkita Nevis. He's not just the Prime Minister, he's a visionary leader. He's reshaping governance, and he has been leading with precision since 2022. He has championed economic resilience. healthcare reform, and global partnerships. He's a key figure in CARICOM and chair of the OECS. His influence, ladies and gentlemen, extends far beyond his nation. He drives regional progress with bold and strategic leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, taking us further for the next keynote address, join me as we welcome the Prime Minister, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Michael Drew.
Let me start by saying that I'm happy to be home. It is my first trip back to what we term in the Caribbean as the motherland. That is how we see Africa. We see ourselves as part and parcel of this great continent. 400 years ago, my foreparents left Africa under very dire circumstances, against their will, to work for other people, to enrich them, and to put them in a position where they would oppress not only those who they directly enslaved, but would oppress the very continent from whence they took my forefathers, my foremothers. And so today, I return not as an enslaved one, but as a free child of Africa. To reconnect and to say to the world that we have come to recognize, after many centuries of deceit and misrepresentation, that we are one people indeed. Let me recognize here with us today, I want to recognize Her Excellency Dr. Fakim, who gave such an inspiring speech. Put your hands together for her. Thank you very much for joining me at this inaugural summit. I also want to recognize representative of President Orama. And President Orama is not just a partner in trade and business, but he has become a friend. And just to give you a story, when I was elected in August of 2022, my first trip outside of St. Kitts and Nevis was to Barbados. And that was to meet the Afreximbank representatives and President Orama. And from that point till now, we have developed, I will term, a friendship. I invited him to St. Kitts and Nevis. He sat with me in my cabinet room. And if you were to see a picture of my cabinet room, right behind me is a painting. Directly behind me is a painting. And that painting comes from this continent. And it was a dear gift from President Orama. And so we have all embarked on this great concept of reconnecting the West and the East, of bringing all of us of African descent together again in meaningful dialogue, and not just dialogue, but meaningful action. So allow me to recognize, of course, Aisha. Aisha, who is becoming a friend as well from the Aquarian Consult. She also visited St. Kitts and Nevis, and she visited me in my cabinet room, my meeting room, rather, and I told her that I will come to Africa. And today, I am in Nigeria. Let me introduce to you my distinguished delegation. With me, as was mentioned before, is the Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Matt Brantley. Interestingly enough, he is also the leader of the opposition. As you would know, we disagree on a lot of things. But there are some things that I have said to him, and he has agreed, that we must agree on. And that is to position St. Kitts and Nevis to build cooperation with our continent and other nations afar for the benefit of all of us in different spheres. Put your hands together for him. Also allow me to recognize the Honorable Samuel Duggins, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources and Cooperatives, Small Business, Entrepreneurship, Sports and Creative Economy, Entertainment and the Arts. Can you please stand, Minister? I introduce you to him. Allow me to introduce to you our distinguished Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Marcus Natter. Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, Ms. Naima Hazel. Ambassador to the OECS, CARICOM, and ACS, His Excellency Larry Vaughan. He sang the national anthem. Allow me also to recognize and forever termed Her Excellency Rosalind Hazel, and she is part of the organizing committee. Executive Chairman of the Citizenship by Investment Unit, Mr. Calvin St. Just. My press secretary to my office, Mr. Javan Liebert. And Director of Creative Economy, Ms. Robertine Webb. And from the private sector, allow me to introduce the Executive Director of St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Sanya Aline. Let me further recognize, of course, the COO of Afreximbank, Mr. Alain Thierry, who present the speech today on behalf of President Ram. Allow me to recognize all other distinguished guests and permit me to, of course, stand on the order of precedence that was so ably delivered before the start of this most auspicious event today. I want to recognize members of the Diplomatic Corps and all the delegates who are sitting in with us. Welcome once again to all of you. I greet you with warmth and spirit and the spirit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and by extension, the Caribbean. Allow me to share a few caveats about St. Kitts and Nevis with you that you will find quite intriguing. St. Kitts and Nevis became the mother colony of the whole of the Caribbean for Great Britain at that time. That is how important it was. It was also the center of French colonization in the Caribbean. One of the founding fathers of the United States of America, and I guess you all know who he is, Hamilton. Hamilton, who was a founding father, and you have seen the play with him, he was actually born in St. Kitts and Nevis, specifically on the island of Nevis. The other caveat you will know about St. Kitts and Nevis is that we had the first hotel in the whole Caribbean and one of the first in the whole region of the Americas, called the Bath Hotel, that was premised on warm water that came from the volcanic springs. So St. Kitts and Nevis has had a tremendous impact on the world. The movement for decolonization started in 1935 before the Second World War in an uprising in St. Kitts and Nevis that spread through all of Africa, the Caribbean, and even Asia, that forced the British to do a study called the Moyne Commission. That too started in St. Kitts. So I'm simply saying that we have always been a people who have sought to be independent and free from oppression. And today, our link to the African continent is a next step in our journey. So it is an honor to stand here. So it is an honor to stand here with you today in the heart of Nigeria, a land of immense power, promise, and pride. And as we gather to participate in what I believe will be one of the most defining summits of our time, as I stepped off the plane and onto Nigerian soil, I felt a surge of emotion that was difficult to articulate. It was a feeling of homecoming, not as a formality or metaphor, but as a truth deeply etched into my very being. Our bloodlines may span oceans, but our stories, our cultures, our ambitions, they are all connected. Africa is not a distant relative to the Caribbean. It is our mother. And today, we are not just visiting, we are returning with purpose, with vision, and with an unwavering belief in what we can achieve together. This summit is more than an assembly of minds. It is a declaration of intent. For too long, the conversations between Africa and the Caribbean have been occasional and symbolic. Today, that must change. Today, we must chart a course towards sustained, strategic, and structured collaboration, economic, cultural, political, and spiritual. We must recognize that in each other, we see reflections of ourselves. And in coming together, we unlock a wealth of possibilities that can lift generations out of economic uncertainty and into shared prosperity. In St. Kitts and Nevis, our government is guided by a bold and transformative vision that we call the Sustainable Island State Agenda. This is more than a policy framework. It is our national mission, a mission to build a resilient, inclusive, and self-reliant nation that thrives in the face of global challenges. At the heart of this agenda is climate action. We understand, like many of our Caribbean and African neighbors, that the climate crisis is not a theoretical threat. It is a lived experience. Hurricanes intensify, droughts prolong, coastlines erode, and our people are displaced. But we have chosen not to be victims of geography or climate. Instead, we are positioning ourselves as leaders in innovation and sustainability. One of the most ambitious undertakings in this regard is our investment in geothermal energy. Our island of Nevis, which with its volcanic heritage, holds immense geothermal potential. We are moving steadily toward a future where our electricity grid is powered primarily by clean, renewable energy from beneath our very feet. The project is not just a solution for St. Kitts and Nevis. It is a model for small island developing states and African nations where similar geophysical capacity exists. Imagine what could happen if African expertise, Caribbean innovation, and international financing were brought together to scale these efforts across continents. It is not only possible, but I dare say it is necessary. Our commitment to sustainability extends beyond energy. St. Kitts and Nevis is also revamping its approach to agriculture, not just for food security, but as a foundation of economic independence. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded us that dependence on global supply chains, especially for food, is a dangerous vulnerability. In response, we are cultivating a new generation of farmers equipped with modern tools, climate-resilient crops, and a renewed sense of national pride. Yet we know we cannot do this alone. Africa, with its centuries of agricultural knowledge, its dynamic ecosystems, and its innovation in agri-tech, can be a critical partner in this journey. Joint research, seed banks, farm exchanges, and technological partnerships between all regions can revolutionize food production and distribution, not just for ourselves, but for an increasingly world that need more food. And let me dare say that the very thing that built Europe and Great Britain and North America, but especially Europe, was sugarcane and cotton, or sugar from sugarcane from the Caribbean. So our region played a significant role in what we call the industrial revolution by creating the agricultural base that was necessary. So economic resilience also means accessing the managing capital in a way that serves our people. Too often, access to affordable finance is the missing link between vision and reality, especially for young entrepreneurs, women, and small business owners. We have been working to reform our systems to ensure that capital reaches those with ideas and drive. And we believe that the future of financing must be shaped by Afro-Caribbean innovation. From fintech solutions to diaspora bonds, from cross-continental venture capital networks to microcredit programs rooted in community trust, we must create our own instruments of empowerment. Let us not only seek capital, let us design it, control it, and direct it to where it can have the most transformative impact. That is where our Citizenship by Investment program also comes into focus. For over 4 decades, since 1984, St. Kitts and Nevis has operated the oldest and most respected CBI program in the world. Today, we are transforming it into a development-focused platform. Investors no longer simply acquire citizenship, they become partners in nation building. Their investments go directly into hospitals, schools, renewable energy, technology, and infrastructure. And here too, we are extraordinary potential for synergy. African investors and entrepreneurs can partner with our government to unlock access, not just to citizenship, but to mutually beneficial investment ventures. In fact, CBI can become a new diplomatic tool, a bridge between capital and conscience. But prosperity is not only measured in dollars and infrastructure. It is also found in our stories, our songs, our spirit. Culture is not a byproduct of development. It's our soul. The Caribbean owes its vibrancy to the deep well of African heritage. From the steel pan to soca, from calypso to carnival, our identity is rooted in the rhythms of this continent. Now we must elevate our creative economies. We must professionalize our artists, protect their intellectual property, and give them platforms that are far-reaching and felt. I envision a co-produced film between Nollywood and Caribbean studios, art residencies, and cultural festivals that draw audiences from every corner of the diaspora. So together, we can monetize our culture while preserving its integrity, turning creativity into a currency of its own. Tourism too stands at the intersection of identity and economy. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we are proud of our stunning beaches, historic sites, and world-class hospitality. But more than that, we are committed to developing tourism that tells our story. Afro-Caribbean heritage tourism that invites travelers, not just to relax, but to reconnect. We want to welcome our African brothers and sisters, not as tourists, but as kin. Direct flights, cultural itineraries, and collaborative marketing can build bridges in ways that no trade deal could ever accomplish. As we speak of cooperation and unity, it would be remiss not to acknowledge Dr. Didigus Jules, who would also speak today via technology. He is the SG of the OECS, which is the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. The OECS is a shining example of what can be accomplished when small nations stand together. We have harmonized our systems to do with health, unified our judiciary, collaborated on education, and shared resources for climate resilience. Now, imagine what we can do when the OECS joins hands with the economic community of West African states, the African Union, and the African Continent Free Trade Area. We would be unstoppable. We would not just influence policy, we would shape the future. Interestingly enough, while we gather here in Abuja, advancing our mission to forge stronger bonds between Africa and the Caribbean, a parallel and equally historic moment was recorded in Bridgetown, Barbados, in the Caribbean. There, officials from the Afreximbank, Africa's leading multilateral trade finance institution, participated in a groundbreaking ceremony for the Afreximbank African Trade Center. This center served not just as a physical hub for African Caribbean commerce, but as a symbol of concrete institutional ties now being built between our regions. It marks a new era of cooperation where trade, investment, and innovation flow not just in theory, but in practice. Put your hands together for the Afreximbank. This dual presence, Caribbean leadership here in Africa, and African institutions establishing roots in the Caribbean, demonstrates that our efforts are not one-sided, nor are they ceremonial. They are deliberate, they are strategic, and they are unfolding in real time. And as I represent the Caribbean on this side of the Atlantic, and as our African brothers and sisters extend their footprint across the Caribbean, we are together bridging a historic divide. We are proving that this partnership is no longer a vision for the future. It is happening now. So my friends, my brothers, my sisters, my family, the journey ahead will not be without its challenges, but the foundation is already there. We have shared bloodlines, shared values, shared struggles, and now we must pursue shared victories. So let it be remembered not for its handshakes and photo ops, but for its declarations that turned into decisions, and decisions that turned into actions. Let it mark the beginning of a permanent Afro-Caribbean partnership, bold, unapologetic, and visionary. And I leave you with this truth. The distance between Africa and the Caribbean is not a divide. It is a bridge. And today, we walk across that bridge together. It is therefore with great pride, with great hope, and with great faith in our collective future that the next 400 years will be far removed from the previous 400 years, where Africa and the Caribbean linked together for our shared prosperity. And with that, I want to declare the Aquarian Consult AFRI-Caribbean Investment Summit 2025 officially open. May this summit be the summit that changes everything from what is to what we know it can be. Thank you, my brothers and sisters.
Please, one more time, a round of applause for that heartwarming speech. The distance is not a divide, it's just a bridge. When he was starting off his speech, he started by saying, "It's good to be home." And now that you are home, it's only right that we give you a Nigerian name. So here in Nigeria, we have 3 major languages. We have Hausa, Igbo, and, oh great, to know political science. So Hausas from the north, we're going to give you Aminu. Do we like the sound of Aminu? Aminu means trustworthy. Now, Igbo people will call you Eze. Eze means king. We're not clapping for the Igbos. And then Yorubas, I had a hard time. I was torn between Adekunle and Olayinka. Adekunle or Olayinka? Adekunle. So Adekunle means the crown that fills the house. So, sir, you came in here as Prime Minister Dr. Terence Michael Jew, but you are living here as Prime Minister Dr. Aminu Eze Adekunle. A round of applause for our new sibling.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate the fact that the standing ovation was completely overwhelming, and I'd like that we give him an overwhelming round of applause one more time. For me, there is actually no difference between the Caribbeans and Africans, and that has been exemplified already in the way you are, the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you walk. You are truly, truly African. Please, I'd like that you put your hands together for yourselves one more time. And you also add that there's something the Caribbeans are doing that we should also borrow a leaf from in the African continent. And first of its kind is the fact that we have very young men leading the Caribbean countries. One, as yourself. I was also privileged to have attended a conference in Grenada early this year, and I recall very vividly the Prime Minister is equally as young and as dynamic as yourself. Please, let's give the Caribbean nations a round of applause. Now, very quickly, we are going to move on with the rest of our activities this very first day of this all-important summit. But just as we move on, permit me to warmly recognize the presence of Honorable Padri Adu Shakir Kehinde, is the President, Afro-Caribbean Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. Please, let's welcome him with a round of applause. Thank you for joining us. We'd also recognize the presence of Hadiza Shehu Muazu, the Executive Director, Cyber One Systems Network International Limited. Please, let's welcome Hadiza with a round of applause. As I also make bold to recognizing the moderator for this afternoon session. And our moderator is the Director General, Center for Black African and Culture and African Arts and Civilization. Please, let's welcome Aisha Aogi with a round of applause. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to be inviting you over shortly, but just spare me a little time. I like the fact that you have actually come out and shown your very beautiful regalia. Please, let's applaud her one more time. Thank you. In moving on, we have with us as well one of our speakers who will be talking to us, and she is a crown princess. She is a queen, Olori Atuashe III of Worry. Can we please welcome her as well to this event? Please just a wave at us, Olori. Do you mind, Your Majesty? Thank you so very much for joining us. Before we move on, we have been also told that the next speaker will be talking to us via Zoom, and that is the Secretary General of OECS, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Didacus Yules. I don't know if he's ready with his remarks already, but if he's not, then we can move on. We're looking at the screen to be sure that he's here. But before then, I think it would be proper that we take a group photograph, and we'll be inviting the following persons to join His Excellency the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. And please do join me in welcoming the Prime Minister back to the stage for a group photograph. And we'll be inviting a few other dignitaries to join you. The former President of Mauritius, Madam President, please help us join him. The representative of President Orama. Would also like to invite the consultant, award-winning consultant, Aisha Maina. Please, let's welcome her as well. Yes, I think that will be better on that lower platform, and then a few others will be joining you afterwards. Please, let's have this first of all. I then want to invite, please remain with us. I then want to invite all of the Prime Minister's delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis, all of you from St. Kitts and Nevis that are here with the Prime Minister. Those of you on the entourage of the Prime Minister, please. Is Ambassador Hazel here? Ambassador Hazel? She must have stepped out. Okay, let's have this. Let's get up close. Too much gap in between you. Let's build the bridges. I didn't want to invite, okay, Ambassador Hazel is here. Thank you. And then we want to invite all members of the diplomatic community that are here with us. All members of the diplomatic community, can we please join them for this photograph? Members of delegation may wish to step down and allow the members of the diplomatic corps with the Prime Minister, the former President of Mauritius, Aisha Maina, and the representative of President Orama. May I also have the very privilege of inviting the former governor of Benue State, Your Excellency, Senator Dr. Gabriel Suswam, to please join them. May I also invite Olori Atuashe III, Your Majesty. The President, please hold on to it. Let's please invite the President Afro-Caribbean Chamber of Culture and Tourism to please join them on the other side. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. You may take your seats. Please, a round of applause for them. Another great takeaway from this event, as told us by His Excellency the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, is the fact that the ruling party and the opposition are working together for the common good of the great people of St. Kitts and Nevis, by extension, the Caribbean, and indeed Africa and Nigeria. Please, a round of applause for this exemplary leadership. In some countries of the world, the opposition and the ruling party will never sit on the same table, not even when it comes to dialoguing. And so we like this example being set today. Please, another round of applause for them. I say this in the words of Archimedes, who says, and I quote, "Give me a place to stand, and I'll move the earth." Unquote. Africa and indeed Caribbean are simply saying together with this summit today that if you give them a space, they will not only build bridges of prosperity or bridges of the future, but of course a bridge that will be accommodating the entire world. Because I believe in the nearest future, the entire world is looking up to the Caribbean and Africa to make that great difference. Please, a round of applause for Africa and the Caribbean. It is on this note, standing and resting on the existing protocols, that we then want to invite via Zoom Dr. Didakis Jules, the Secretary General of the OECS, St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Didakis, we're waiting. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. I follow the established protocol, but nevertheless recognize esteemed heads of government, distinguished heads of institutions, distinguished colleagues, fraternal guests, our highly regarded Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and his delegation, members of the family of Africa. It is both an honor and a responsibility to participate in this critical dialogue on intra-Caribbean investment, particularly within the broader context of deepening ties between Africa and the Caribbean. We gather not merely to talk trade or investment, but to catalyze transformation anchored in our shared history and inspired by our shared future. The case for intra-Caribbean investment is compelling. Within the Caribbean, we see a mosaic of small states with big ambitions, economies driven by tourism, financial services, blue economy, creative industries, and increasingly digital innovation. Yet, despite proximity and commonalities, intra-regional investment remains underdeveloped, constrained by fragmentation, scale, and infrastructure gaps. The OECS, as Prime Minister Drew may have said, comprising 12 member states and associate members, offers, we believe, a blueprint for deeper regional investment integration. With the determination of becoming a fully functioning single economic space, with harmonized legislation in several sectors, a shared central bank and currency, and free movement of people and goods, the OECS exemplifies the benefits of pooling sovereignty for shared prosperity. What are the key imperatives for unlocking intra-Caribbean investment? First, we must invest in connectivity, air, sea, and internet, not only physical, but digital and financial. Without improved logistics and cross-border digital infrastructure, investment will remain stifled. This is a call to both governments and the private sector. Let us treat regional connectivity as a strategic investment, not a sunk cost. Secondly, we need to scale up investment in regional value chains. Rather than competing for slices of the same pie, let us grow the pie together through cooperative industrial strategies in agriculture and agro-processing, renewable energy, and niche manufacturing. And by the way, St. Kitts and Nevis is one of our leading member states with regard to renewable energy, geothermal. An OECS-led initiative in pharmaceutical cannabis production, for example, holds promise for both intra-regional and Africa-Caribbean trade. Thirdly, we must deepen institutional partnerships. Banks, investment promotion agencies, stock exchanges, and regulatory bodies must harmonize standards and facilitate regional capital mobility. The Caribbean Association of Banks, for example, could play a catalytic role in building trans-Caribbean financial platforms. And incidentally, too, CAB, the Caribbean Association of Banks, has had discussions with the Afreximbank. Fourthly, we must unlock the power of diaspora capital. Caribbean and African nationals, whether in Toronto or London or Lagos, hold not only remittances, but knowledge, networks, and risk capital. Let us create investment instruments tailored for them, diaspora bonds, co-investment funds, and crowd financing platforms that can make investing in home and home in both Africa and the Caribbean both patriotic and profitable. Finally, intra-Caribbean investment is not only about capital, it is about confidence and cohesion. Investors follow certainty, stability, and strategic vision. We in the Caribbean must move with urgency to complete the integration architecture and remove the regulatory and bureaucratic bottlenecks that make cross-border investment frustrating. In conclusion, the vision of bridging continents starts by building bridges between us within the Caribbean. Africa will be more eager to partner with a region that is already investing in its own integration and prosperity. Intra-Caribbean investment is therefore not a narrow objective. It is foundational to the Africa-Caribbean partnership that we all seek to build. Let us invest in ourselves to be ready to partner with the world. I thank you.
The partnership for the future. And thank you very much, Dr. Didakus. Permit me to quickly apologize to the Group Chief Operations Officer of MRS Holdings, Ms. Amina Maina. She's been with us all morning, and we actually left her out of these recognitions. Please kindly find a space in your heart to forgive us, please. Are we forgiven? Just a wave will make me know that you've forgiven us. Please, a round of applause for her one more time. Thank you. We'd also like to appreciate the presence of the immediate past Director General, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Victoria Akai. Please let's welcome her as well with a resounding applause. Thank you very, very much. We'll move on with the rest of the programs. But of course, I think you have one recognition or two to do. No recognitions. And so in the light of that, we'll be inviting Her Majesty, the Olori Atuashe III of Warri, to at this point in time speak to us for the next 10 minutes. Please, can we welcome her with a very resounding applause, please, as she makes her way here. Always a delight to see you. Welcome.
Good morning. Allow me to stand on existing protocol, but especially recognize the presence of His Excellency, the Minister of St. Kitts, Dr. Terence Drew. We say welcome to Nigeria. And also to especially recognize the presence of a much respected mentor and friend, the first female president of Mauritius and former President of Mauritius, Her Excellency Amina Gurub Fakims. What wonderful to see you here again, Ma. Welcome. I bring you greetings from His Majesty, the Olu of Warri, and the good people of the Warri Kingdom. I've been invited to speak on cultural industries and the creative economy, and I care deeply about this subject. So fair warning, my enthusiasm might become a bit contagious. This journey is personal for me. Today I serve as the Queen Consort of the Warri Kingdom, a role that makes me a cultural custodian, preserving, protecting, and promoting the age-old traditions of our people. However, many don't know that before and long before I became a custodian of culture, I was already working in the space as a patron of the arts and a fashion entrepreneur. I see a lot of people open their mouths. All the way from my university days, I owned a fashion label called Color Couture. Now that's a fun fact about me. As a creative myself, I've always believed that whether it's fashion, music, or food, the tangible expressions of our culture shouldn't just be consumed. They should persuade. They should attract. They should make the world lean in. In fact, they should make the world more than lean in. They should make the world buy in. They should make the world invest in us. In other words, if harnessed correctly, they should wield soft power. Now, let me explain, and I think I'm speaking to a room of development experts. But for those of us that don't know, soft power is the ability to shape preferences and influence behavior through appeal rather than coercion. It's when people choose your products, your ideas, and your way of life, not because they were forced to, but because they were drawn to you. So when Korean dramas spark global demand for Korean food and tourism, and even language, that's soft power. Even more obviously, Hollywood. When American music and movies sell entire lifestyles, from fashion to technology, that's soft power. When rap music gets a young man who lives in the back end of a Balande in Ikoyi to rap word for word to Tupac, and not just rap, but also dress like him and walk like him, that is soft power. For decades, the nations that understand this have been exporting culture as power and as profit. I believe it's Africa's turn to do the same. And when I say Africa, I'm not just speaking to the geographical landmark that makes the continent, but to the spirit of Africa, which everyone of African descent, including our Caribbean brothers, carry. When I look at the cultural richness of Africa and the Caribbean, from our music to our fashion, from our food to our festivals, I don't only see beauty and heritage, I see untapped potential for investment and growth. Afrobeats already fills stadiums worldwide, and Caribbean carnivals brings in tens of thousands of visitors annually. These are signals that the world is already drawn to us, to our rhythm, to our expression, to our very essence. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has all the trappings of soft power. Unfortunately, right now, the cultural impact is ours, but often the economic returns are not. Take Nigeria, for example. According to our most recent data from the National Bureau of Statistics, the creative economy contributed only 1.2% to our GDP. And we earned 1% in government revenue from the same sector, compared to South Africa's 12.5%. Still, that is very, very meager. Let's be clear. The gap is not in talent. The gap is not in creativity. And it's certainly not in global demand as we can see it. After all, Afrobeats are constantly topping the charts in international spheres, and even has its own Grammy section and category. Nollywood is one of the most prolific film industries globally. Our writers are shaping worldwide discourse, while our designers are influencing fashion across the globe. So I repeat, the gap is not in the talent. The gap is in the infrastructure. The gap is in the ownership and in the systems designed to scale and to sustain creative excellence. And that right there is where I see tremendous opportunity for the African-Caribbean collaboration. Together, we recognize and we represent 1.5 billion people connected by shared histories, bloodlines, and complementary creative strengths. Imagine what becomes possible when we build and scale our own platforms for validation, for promotion, and for distribution. Platforms don't rely on external gatekeepers, but are rooted in our shared values and are owned by us. That is what led His Majesty and I to found Elevate Africa, a social organization, a social impact organization that meets at the intersection of media and development with the sole aim of elevating the African narrative, elevating the African perspective, both at home and abroad, with the purpose and through the means of storytelling. Our creatives are ready, but they need platforms that cross borders and respect context. Our creative entrepreneurs are working across sectors, but they need capital to scale. And at this point, I really do want to recognize and appreciate the contributions of Afreximbank. They're doing excellently well in this space. Can we please just give them a round of applause for that? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to take the business of culture and creativity seriously. Let's build distribution networks designed specifically for the African and Caribbean content. This could begin with a consortium of existing media and tech platforms backed by regional support. Let's prioritize ownership so that the revenue generated from our cultural assets stay within our communities, empowering homegrown creators, fueling our own economies, and building generational wealth. This is the vision, but it's not reserved for big names or luxury markets alone. One of the most powerful things about the cultural and creative industries is how inclusive they are. They can create jobs at every level and reduce poverty because they are accessible, particularly to women, youth, and marginalized communities. So when we invest, we're not just investing in culture, we're investing in our people, we're investing in their dignity and in their possibility. I call on all of us, investors, policymakers, creators, government officials, to co-create a future where the economic value of our cultural expression finally matches its true worth. Because the truth is, soft power isn't just theory, it's our advantage. The world is already leaning in, listening to our music, reading our stories, wearing our fabrics, eating our food. If we are bold and strategic, the future, rich, creative, and unapologetically ours, belongs to Africans. Now is the time to do more than entertain. Now is the time to own our soft power and to scale it, to ensure that the influence we create translates into opportunities and lasting prosperity for our people, not just today, but for the generations to come. Thank you all for listening to me.
Please, one more time, give a very warm round of applause to Her Majesty. Cultural industries and creative economy, that's what she just spoke about. And she said a very important thing. She said the talents are there, but the structure isn't. So while I just did a little research on how this relates to Nigeria and the Caribbean. And just as I thought, for both regions, it pulled out similar things. So we start with Nollywood. There's a present movie now in Nollywood that in 3 days got about 10 million views, love in every word. But can you track the royalties, really? Same thing with Afrobeats. We have royalty collection issues, legal disputes. For the Caribbean, can we really ignore the carnivals? Cultural significance, but very low, high economic potential, but it isn't materializing. Can we also ignore dance hall and reggae? Same thing, copyright challenges. Hopefully, this conversation would not just stop here. It wouldn't just stop as a conversation, but for us to make steps in the right direction to see that we can bridge this gap. One more time, a round of applause for Her Majesty for that beautiful rendition. And I hope when we go back, it wouldn't just stay as a presentation, but a thought to action.
Interestingly, so ladies and gentlemen, we're making great impact with all the comments and of course all the speeches being delivered at this occasion. And for me, what's actually happening and the most exciting aspect for me as an individual is the fact that this program is being televised live on many Nigerian television networks, especially the Channels Television and a host of others. I like that we give them a round of applause, the organizers of this program, for that very wonderful feat. That means that even in the Caribbean, as we speak, they're watching. That's what the essence is. And for me, that makes us a global, being on global stage at this material time. We'd like to get the conversation going. And in getting this conversation going, it is pertinent at this juncture to invite certain individuals that will be seated on this side of the divide to help us make progress with a conversation around this very important summit, AFRI-Caribbean investment opportunities and enablers. First, to come on the stage will be Mr. Omoboyede Olusonya, the Group Managing Director of Flour Mills Nigeria, but is ably represented at this occasion by Sadiq Umar, Director, Group Strategy and Stakeholder Relations of Flour Mills and Agro Allied Group. Please can we welcome him instead to please come over and take a seat.
For our next panelist, we have the GCOO, Mrs. Holding, Holding, Amina Mena. Please, a round of applause for her as she joins us.
She is here in flesh and blood. Please, we can make better that round of applause. And the next person to join us will be Messiah Alain, the CEO of Chamber of Industry and Commerce St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a round of applause for her.
And to moderate this panel, we have the Director General, Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. We have Aisha Ogi. Please, a round of applause for her.
Whilst Aisha is making her way here, I must tell you that Aisha is a professional Nigerian photographer and a filmmaker based here in Abuja. She is Hausa from Arugungu local government area of Kebbi State in northern Nigeria. She has won an award for Creative Artist of the Year at the 2011 Future Awards. Her work spans across documentary, fashion, aerial photography, music's juxtaposition in her work as her way of pushing the idea there are always two sides to a story. This comes from her background in photojournalism and mass communication. Her personal projects explore issues of gender and identity influenced by her experience as a female mixed race and mixed tribe individual who struggles to fit in her earlier in life. And Augie is the former special advisor, digital communication strategy to the former Minister of Finance and Budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And prior to that appointment, she was the senior special assistant to the governor of Kebbi State, the then governor of Kebbi State, on new media. Aisha Ogi leads various developmental initiatives for the advocacy of youth and women empowerment across Nigeria. She today sits pretty very tall as the Director General and CEO of Center for Black and African Arts and Civilization. She's the moderator for this session. Please, a warm round of applause for her. And we'll be leaving you to take charge of affairs for the next, how many minutes do we have for you? I need to look at that. But if not, I'll come to you in writing as to the number of minutes that is allotted to this conversation. Please, can we give the panelists and the moderator another round of applause? Aisha Ogi, you have the floor.
Hello, Africa. Hello, Africa. We have to feel that energy, you know. We're full of culture and a lot of noise, right? So hello, Africa. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, PM Dr. Aminu Eze Adekunle, aka Dr. Terence, ACL, our ambassadors here present, I would like to say, as the Prime Minister said earlier, please allow me to stand on the order of precedence. In Nigeria, we say stand on existing protocol. That's another thing to learn. Welcome to Nigeria. Welcome to Africa. Welcome home. I would like all three of us here to please give a short introduction as we commence. But I would first want to commend ACL, Aisha Mena, and the team for putting this together. And we would also love to appreciate the ambassadors who have accepted our invitation to come here today. We're all here today as one. And I'm so happy to speak after the Olori, a beautiful, exceptional, stunning, intelligent woman who has become a really strong character within the creative and cultural space. So before I allow the moderators to begin, I would just like to say, when we look at the level of cultural diplomacy that we have, we learn about each other first through our culture. I think those who have learned about St. Kitts but have never been there would think about the Caribbean culture, the Caribbean food, the music, coconut water, sugarcane, you know, and I'm really glad that we're here today to hear more about St. Kitts, and we're also able to interact with each other. For those in the room, it's a great opportunity for you to network and see how we can connect with each other moving forward. And with that, I would like to begin with our guest from St. Kitts, Ms. Elaine, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So I'll first start off by introducing the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We are a representative body of the private sector within St. Kitts and Nevis. We represent the manufacturing, construction, entertainment, as well as professional business services. We also represent the distributors and retailers on the island. So it's a diverse portfolio of companies within the chamber. The chamber's role is primarily to inform the private sector of any national policy or legislative reform, and also to be able to input into it. Because the private sector has a place and has a seat in the table, at the table, to be able to present statistical data, information, and assist in the shaping of national policy. And that I would commend St. Kitts and Nevis for, because it's really a model to marry and to, what I would say, emulate, because other Caribbean territories may not necessarily have such a close relationship between the chamber and government policy formation, which is something I truly and honestly respect. And in terms of the overarching theme, I think I will hand over to my colleague to my right to introduce herself, and then I'll come back and speak on it.
Thank you very much. My name is Amina Maina. I am the Group Chief Operating Officer of MRS Holdings. I'm also the third Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I am a council member of the Midstream and Downstream Infrastructure Fund, and I am a member of the Presidential Advisory Economic Council. As MRS, thank you. As MRS, I think the first thing I will say is that if you came in a vehicle today, you probably have been in one of our stations. I think we've been making a lot of headlines these days with our stations and how we're trying to make fuel affordable for every Nigerian, and of course the quality. So I sit as the Group Chief Operating Officer of that company. We are in Nigeria. We have a listed company. We are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we're also in other African countries. We're in the Republic of Benin. We're in Togo. We're in Ivory Coast. We're in Cameroon. We're looking into Senegal. So we're really a Pan-African oil company. Through, downstream, midstream, we're now venturing into upstream. And one of the things that I hope will come out of this engagement would be our hunger to move to St. Kitts and Nevis and increase the energy efficiency of the country. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you all today. Here, ably representing Mr. Boye Olusonya, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Flour Mills of Nigeria, or FMN. My name is Sadiq Usman. I'm a Group Director responsible for strategy. FMN's history is as old as Nigeria's post-colonial history. FMN, interestingly, started as a company 2 days before Nigeria's independence in 1960. So we're 65, like Nigeria this year. We've grown to be Nigeria's largest food and agribusiness concern. Amina said you probably have driven in an MRS fueled vehicle today. I can wager that, except our guests, who probably have had an FMN product for breakfast, you all have our products at home through our iconic Golden Penny brand. So, as I said, FMN started in 1960. Today, we're split roughly along 5 verticals. On our food side, we've got a grain business, flour milling, of course, and then we diversified in the late 70s into household foods, which were very much known for pasta, noodles, edible oils, sugar, the basics that you have at home, margarines. We also have an agro-allied group where we have fertilizer, the largest fertilizer blending operations in the country, the largest animal feed, and then through Top Feeds brand. Also diversified into sugar. We have a sugar plantation and sugar refinery in the Apapa port. And we've also diversified into logistics. We've got a fleet of trucks to serve our customers. We manage the bulk terminal of the Apapa port, where we handle our imports and as well as exports to Europe and to South America, hopefully the Caribbean as well soon. And lastly, we're involved in our own power generation, property, logistics, and some other businesses. So we have 23 subsidiaries across the group. And as I said, pleased to be all with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. You know, there is something we say, there's a reason I said you should introduce yourselves. As Africans, we have to learn to tell our own stories. And there's no one better to introduce yourself than you yourself. And we need to do the same within our countries and our interconnectedness with our stories. Obviously, it's Women's Month. I will not proceed without celebrating us women. As you can see, we gave 25% quota on this stage to our he for she.